The Art of Travel by Alain de Botton is a reflective and thoughtful exploration of why we travel, what we hope to find when we leave home, and why travel so often disappoints or surprises us. Rather than serving as a traditional guidebook filled with tips and destinations, the book examines the inner experience of travel. It blends philosophy, literature, art, and personal stories to understand how journeys affect our minds and emotions. De Botton argues that travel is not only about seeing new places, but about seeing differently. The book moves through different stages of a journey: anticipation, departure, arrival, encounters with beauty, encounters with the exotic, and finally, the return home. Through these stages, he draws on the ideas of writers and artists such as Charles Baudelaire, Edward Hopper, Gustave Flaubert, Alexander von Humboldt, William Wordsworth, and John Ruskin to show that travel is as much a mental and emotional act as it is a physical one. The book begins by looking at anticipation, the period before a journey actually starts. De Botton observes that sometimes the happiest part of travel happens before we leave home. When we plan a trip, look at brochures, or imagine ourselves in a distant city, our minds fill with ideal images. The future destination seems perfect because it is untouched by reality. In our imagination, there are no delays, no boredom, no bad weather, no loneliness. We imagine that our problems will disappear once we step onto foreign soil. He reflects on how travel advertisements create powerful fantasies, offering not just beaches and cities, but new versions of ourselves, relaxed, adventurous, romantic, transformed. The anticipation of travel becomes a kind of escape from daily routine. We believe in another place we might become a better or happier person. Yet de Botton gently suggests that we often carry our own personalities and worries with us, no matter where we go. From anticipation, the book moves to the experience of departure and the journey itself. Airports, train stations, and highways are described not just as practical spaces, but as emotional zones where we step between identities. In an airport, we are no longer fully part of our ordinary life, yet we have not arrived in the new one. De Botton finds something strangely peaceful in these in-between spaces. He connects this feeling to the French poet Charles Baudelaire, who found beauty in the idea of leaving and in the romance of travel. Baudelaire believed that a change of place could refresh the spirit, but he also understood that restlessness lives inside us. De Botton explores how modern travel has made movement easier than ever before. We can cross continents in hours. Yet the speed of travel can prevent us from fully absorbing the transition. In earlier times, long journeys by ship or carriage gave travelers time to adjust mentally. Today, we might wake up in London and fall asleep in New York with little time to reflect on the change. This can create a strange feeling of disconnection. When travelers finally arrive at their destination, they often face disappointment. The real place rarely matches the imagined one. De Botton speaks honestly about arriving in a famous city and feeling bored or lonely instead of inspired. He suggests that disappointment is not necessarily the fault of the place itself. Rather, it may come from the difference between our expectations and reality. We imagine that a new environment will automatically change our mood, but our inner life continues much as before. If we are anxious at home, we may still feel anxious in Rome or Paris. This realization can be painful, yet it can also be freeing because it reminds us that happiness depends less on location and more on our way of seeing. A major theme of the book is the importance of attention. De Botton argues that we often fail to notice what is around us, both at home and abroad. We rush from one site to another, taking photographs instead of truly looking. He discusses the paintings of Edward Hopper, who captured quiet, lonely scenes in American cities. Hopper's work shows ordinary buildings and people, yet there is deep feeling in these simple images. De Botton suggests that travel can teach us to pay closer attention to small details: the shape of a rooftop, the color of the sky at dusk, the expression of a stranger's face. When we slow down and observe carefully, even a familiar street can become interesting. In this sense, travel is not only about distance, but about awareness. Another major theme of the book is the search for the exotic. Many travelers are drawn to places that seem very different from their own culture. They want to experience other customs, foods, and landscapes. De Botton reflects on the 19th century writer Gustave Flaubert, who traveled to Egypt and the Middle East in search of something radically different from European life. Flaubert longed for intensity and color, for experiences that would break the monotony of his routine. De Botton shows how the desire for the exotic is often connected to dissatisfaction with one's own society. We imagine that elsewhere people live more passionately or authentically. Yet there is a risk of misunderstanding other cultures, of reducing them to simple images that serve our own fantasies. True engagement with another place requires patience, humility, and openness. Nature plays an important role in the book. De Botton turns to the scientist and explorer Alexander von Humboldt, who traveled through South America and wrote in detail about landscapes, plants, and mountains. Humboldt combined scientific observation with emotional sensitivity. He believed that careful study of nature could lead to wonder and understanding. De Botton uses Humboldt to show that travel can deepen our appreciation of the natural world. When we stand before a vast desert, a towering mountain range, or a powerful waterfall, we may feel small yet connected to something larger. Such moments can bring clarity and calm. They remind us that our daily concerns are only a small part of a much bigger world. Another important figure in the book is William Wordsworth, the English poet who found spiritual meaning in landscapes. Wordsworth believed that nature could heal the mind and strengthen the moral sense. De Botton connects Wordsworth's ideas to the experience of modern tourists who visit scenic spots hoping to feel inspired. However, he also points out that simply being in a beautiful place does not guarantee deep feeling. If we are distracted or impatient, we may miss the very beauty we came to see. Wordsworth spent hours walking and observing carefully. His example suggests that travel requires effort. We must prepare ourselves to receive what a place has to offer. De Botton also reflects on art and architecture, drawing on the ideas of the critic John Ruskin. Ruskin believed that careful looking at buildings and paintings could refine our character. He encouraged travelers to study the details of cathedrals, streets, and artworks rather than rushing through them. De Botton agrees that art can train us to see more clearly. A painting may teach us how to notice the way light falls on a wall or how colors blend in a sunset. When we learn to look through the eyes of artists, our travels become richer. Instead of collecting landmarks, we collect ways of seeing. Throughout the book, De Botton returns to the idea that travel is closely linked to our inner life. He challenges the common belief that happiness lies somewhere else. We often think that a new city or country will solve our problems. Yet travel reveals that we carry ourselves with us. If we are restless, we remain restless abroad. If we are thoughtful and curious, we will find meaning even in ordinary surroundings. This does not mean that travel is pointless. On the contrary, it can help us understand ourselves better. By stepping outside our routine, we see our habits more clearly. We notice what we miss from home and what we are glad to leave behind. The book also explores loneliness in travel. Being far from familiar faces can make us feel isolated. In a foreign city, surrounded by unknown languages and customs, we may feel invisible. Yet De Botton does not hide this uncomfortable side of travel.
He suggests that loneliness can also sharpen perception. Without the comfort of friends, we may pay closer attention to our environment. We may become more sensitive to small gestures of kindness from strangers. Travel can reveal both our vulnerability and our resilience. Returning home is another important theme. After a journey, we often see our own city with fresh eyes. Details that once seemed dull may appear interesting. The routine that felt boring before departure can now seem comforting. De Botton argues that one of the best gifts of travel is this renewed perspective. By leaving, we gain the ability to appreciate what we had overlooked. The familiar becomes slightly strange and therefore more noticeable. In this way, travel does not only change our view of distant places,